The roar of the crowd died in an instant. It was the kind of hush that echoes from stadium walls to living rooms, sweeping across social media feeds before anyone could even type, "What just happened?" Moments earlier, Miranda Lambert stood center stage under a blaze of spotlights, her powerhouse voice slicing through every chord of kerosene with the ease of a master. Then, in one unexpected breath, she paused. The mic slipped from her fingers, and for the first time in her storied career, something genuine and alarming crept into her usually fiery performance: vulnerability. Fans exchanged confused glances. Some leaned forward, thinking she was about to launch into one of her signature stories. Others shrank back, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Within seconds, a hush turned to murmurs. The screen on everyone's phone lit up with live streams. Comments flooded in. "Is she okay? Why did the music stop? Health update." All of it built a wave of panic, and when the announcement finally came, Miranda Lambert had to cancel the rest of her Las Vegas show due to a vocal injury. It felt like the floor had given way beneath thousands of fans and viewers around the world. That abrupt cancellation, framed against a backdrop of sold-out nights and glittering reviews, quickly became more than breaking news. It was the latest chapter in an ongoing narrative. Miranda Lambert, the indomitable artist whose grit and fire had fueled her rise from small-town dreams to country music royalty, now facing the stark human limits of voice, body, and spirit. In the hours that followed, the story spread through Twitter threads, Facebook shares, and Instagram snapshots of empty seats and sorrowful faces. "Miranda's voice is her instrument," wrote one fan. "Seeing her step back hits different." Another mused, "We think these stars never tire, never falter. But she's as human as we are." Amid those reactions lay a powerful truth. We often forget that behind the bravado of arena anthems and trophy nights, artists shoulder pressures far beyond our view. The breaks between guitar solos and the confetti drops conceal a relentless schedule, an endless cycle of flights, interviews, studio sessions, and stage lights. For Miranda Lambert, who has built her brand on sound, courage, and authenticity, the stakes have never been higher. One well-received album seamlessly follows another. Chart-topping singles must continue to top charts. Tours must not only sell out, but also outdo the last. Yet when a performer defined by resilience confronts something as vulnerable as a strained vocal cord, fans recognize the fragility beneath even the strongest stage persona. The shock of that night in Vegas didn't just stem from an abrupt pause in the show. It came from the clash between our expectations of unbreakable stars and the sudden reminder of human frailty. This tension, this fracture in the usual narrative of triumph, is what makes moments like these resonate so deeply. It's a testament to the power of contrast framing. How a performer known for powerhouse vocals and unwavering stamina can, in one pause, reveal an unexpected fragility that compels us to lean in, to care more deeply than we ever have before. As we unravel what led to that fateful cancellation, we'll trace the arcs of Miranda Lambert's journey, the childhood that forged her tenacity, the breakthrough moments that catapulted her to fame, the personal trials that tempered her fire, and the relentless touring schedule that brought her to this critical juncture. We'll explore how the same intensity that fuels her creative spirit can also exact a physical toll, how adrenaline and passion can mask injuries until they can no longer be ignored. And we'll examine the broader context of voice injuries in performing artists, a topic often overshadowed by glamour, but one that reveals the precarious tightrope walked by anyone who makes their living through song. Through this narrative arc, we're not just witnessing one singer's setback. We're gaining a window into the hidden struggles behind the spotlight, the balancing act between art and health, ambition and self-care. We'll hear from vocal coaches, industry insiders, and fans whose lives have been shaped by Miranda's songs. Above all, we'll uncover the resilience that defines her story. Not just the resilience to rise after public divorce or tabloid storms, but the resilience to pause, to heal, and to return with renewed purpose. Because if there's one constant in Miranda Lambert's career, it's that every setback becomes a setup for her next act, a chance to connect, to inspire, and to remind us all that sometimes, even the strongest voices need rest. To understand just how she ended up center stage in Vegas, battling vocal strain, and canceling a show that many assumed would go on without a hitch. We need to rewind to the formative years that shaped Miranda Lambert's work ethic and her legendary never quit mentality. Born and raised in the small East Texas town of Lindale, she was the daughter of private investigators who turned their business into a sanctuary for women escaping dangerous situations. Long before she learned to belt a note, she witnessed her parents face economic hardship and personal turmoil with unshakable grit. There were nights when the family lost everything, moving in with relatives while her father, Rick, and mother, Bev, scraped together enough money to keep food on the table. These early lessons in perseverance would echo through every lyric she ever wrote. From the moment Miranda could pick up a microphone, she brushed aside small-town limitations, performing at county fairs, local festivals, and dive bars. She sang wherever she could, driven by a hunger that seemed too large for her 16-year-old frame. Winning a spot on the Johnny High Country Music Review in Arlington at age 16 wasn't just another gig, it was her launch pad. That opportunity showed industry insiders, and more importantly, Miranda herself, that her brand of raw, Southern fried storytelling had the power to cut through layers of radio churn and reach the hearts of country fans. After graduating high school at 16, she left Lindale and hit the road in her father's old pickup truck, selling homemade CDs out of the back seat, booking acoustic sets at honky-tonks, and sleeping on couches wherever she played. Those miles accumulated into what she calls her road school, teaching her everything from vocal projection in smoky bars to the mechanics of performing with a hoarse throat and no dressing room. By the time she auditioned for Nashville Star in 2003, she'd logged hundreds of live shows and already written songs that spoke of heartbreak and rebellion with an authenticity that made listeners feel seen. Her third-place finish on the show was overshadowed by the unmatched quality of her songwriting and stage presence, catching the attention of Epic Records. The label signed her almost immediately, setting into motion a meteoric rise that would culminate in her breakout album Kerosene 2 years later. Kerosene exploded onto the Billboard country charts, fueled by singles like Bring Me Down and the title track, which wrote themselves into radio history. Miranda had co-written 11 of the 12 songs, a rarity for a fresh face in Nashville, and her willingness to wear her scars on her sleeves set her apart from the polished, pop-infused acts of the era. But that early success came with its own hidden pressures. The labels, managers, and fans wanted more. More tours, more media appearances, more music videos, more awards. Miranda's schedule ballooned, and she traded quiet nights at home for back-to-back arena dates, televised award shows, and endless interviews. She became the face of a new generation of female country artists. But even as the accolades piled up, including multiple ACM and CMA trophies, so did the demands on her vocal cords. Performing with a raw, gritty edge that lent her songs such emotional weight also meant pushing her voice to its limits night after night. Vocalists aren't generally trained to sustain that kind of volume for hundreds of shows a year, yet Miranda often treated her voice like an instrument that could be fine-tuned on the fly, ignoring early signs of strain. Small cracks in her range started appearing in studio sessions and live performances. At first, she thought nothing of it. Veteran country stars often grit their teeth through sore throats. But as her career accelerated, those cracks widened into something more serious. Nodes and polyps that, if left untreated, could require months of vocal rest or even surgery. We'll examine how industry norms around touring schedules and record promotion often leave artists with no choice but to sing through pain, and how Miranda's drive to keep sprinting fast-forward contributed to the vulnerabilities that finally came to a head under the unforgiving lights of Vegas. That full exploration will show how a lifetime of grit can become double-edged when the body needs recovery, and how a singer at the top of her game must decide between risking permanent damage or silencing the one tool she relies on above all else. Throughout the intervening years, Miranda balanced triumph with turbulence. Her high-profile marriage to Blake Shelton in 2011 added new media scrutiny, magnifying everything from late-night flights to weight fluctuations. Tabloids framed her as either heartbroken ex-wife or fearless femme fatale, and every song was dissected for hidden subtext. Yet she embraced the stage as the place she could breathe, pouring her frustration and pain into every note. At her peak, She was performing over 200 shows a year, often with 100,000 fans at festival grounds or stadiums full of adoring souls. Between touring and studio sessions producing chart-topping albums like For the Record, Platinum, The Weight of These Wings, and Wildcard, she continually stretched her vocal range and tested her endurance. Each era offered fresh accolades, Grammys, CMAs, ACMs, but also fresh challenges, splitting time between homes, a rigorous fitness routine, and an unrelenting media apparatus. The stakes grew higher when she landed a Las Vegas residency called Velvet Rodeo in early 2023. Residencies demand consistency, every night in the same venue, with the expectation that each performance will match or outshine the last. Production crews, set designers, and elaborate stagecraft all raised the bar. For Miranda, it represented both a career milestone and a personal gauntlet. She relished the chance to craft an intimate experience for a city known for spectacle, but the residency schedule, 4 shows a week, offered little downtime to let her vocal cords recalibrate. She would warm up with vocal exercises 2 hours before curtain, then deliver 2 sets filled with high-energy classics, stripped-down ballads, and banter that blurred the line between performer and friend. Still, on nights when she pushed a little harder on long-held notes, or opened one show with a powerhouse track and closed another with an acoustic set, her voice began betraying her. She tried honey and lemon remedies, throat sprays, and over-the-counter painkillers. Her crew installed humidity tents backstage, and vocal coaches phoned in tips on breathing techniques and mic positioning. Yet the daily grind of performances left her muscles never fully recovering, and tiny lesions on her vocal folds became an ever-present risk. Industry insiders whispered about her voice sounding thin on certain tunes, and fans began to notice her occasional substitutions, sampling background vocals during high reaches or skipping harmonies altogether. But with sold-out crowds and glowing reviews, neither she nor her management publicly acknowledged any underlying issues. The incident in Las Vegas where she halted mid-song to chastise selfie-taking fans may have been driven by frustration, but it also exposed her internal conflict, the need to maintain connection and integrity as a performer while masking an escalating health issue she couldn't ignore. That moment was a microcosm of a much larger dynamic. Her determination to bring every ounce of herself to the stage, even when her body was sending warning signs. When she woke up on the day of the canceled show in March 2023 and felt pain and hoarseness, she faced an impossible choice: go on stage and risk permanent damage, or push pause and disappoint thousands. Opting for the latter, she demonstrated a side of resilience that isn't always celebrated: the courage to step back. In upcoming sections, we'll look closer at the medical advice she received, the industry's reaction, and the fanbase's outpouring of support. We'll also explore how this moment of vulnerability set the stage for her comeback, culminating in a game-changing album, renewed touring strategy, and conversation about self-care and demanding careers. In the hours after Miranda shared her vocal rest announcement, the usual frenzy of concert hype transformed into a collective moment of empathy and introspection. Fans across continents paused their weekend plans to flood her social channels with messages of support, some sharing memories of road trips to her shows, others posting videos of tentative renditions of The House That Built Me, sung into bathroom mirrors with shaky confidence. Country radio hosts dedicated segments to discussing artist health, highlighting how grueling tour schedules can quietly damage voices built for sustained power. Music journalists reached out to ENT specialists who described how tiny lesions on vocal cords, when ignored, can grow into career-threatening polyps. Through all of it, one sentiment remained constant: Miranda Lambert's choice to cancel a sold-out show was not a headline grabbed for clicks, but a necessary step to protect her most precious instrument. Behind closed doors, the singer faced a choice that thousands of medical professionals have watched their patients agonize over: keep driving toward another night in the spotlight or give in to silence long enough for healing. It was a moment that underscored the paradox of performance. Artists generate exhilaration by pushing physical limits, yet those same limits can falter under the weight of expectation. In her case, years of belting arena anthems, whispering confessional verses, and altering her technique on the fly had taken an unseen toll. Miranda had built a brand on defiance and endurance, But for the first time, she confronted a boundary she could not sing around. Rumors had swirled about her vocal tweaks in recent concerts, etched in edits, restrained high notes, and now, in that stark backstage room, the scope of her vulnerability became unavoidable. The medical plan was straightforward yet harsh in its implications. Complete silence for at least a week, a strict regimen of steam inhalation, gentle vocal exercises guided by a specialized coach, and zero performances. No interviews. No promotional radio tours. No impromptu backstage jam sessions. For someone whose identity entwined so tightly with her ability to communicate through song, it felt like erasure. Industry insiders explained that vocal rest is a term both mundane and loaded, a necessary procedure, but one that risks financial fallout, disappointed fans, and potential loss of career momentum. In Nashville, where the next hit single can make or break a season, even a brief pause can introduce an uncomfortable vacuum. Yet Miranda embraced the forced break with a brand new perspective. Perhaps this was not just a medical decree, but an invitation to recalibrate long-neglected parts of her life. With her voice off limits, Miranda shifted focus to aspects of her artistry that had been relegated to side notes. She spent afternoons poring over lyric notebooks, some scrawled in the margins of hotel room receipts, others carefully monogrammed on leather-bound pages, looking for forgotten phrases that might spark new songs. She revisited demos she had abandoned in past sessions, uncovering melodies that resonated more deeply now through the lens of pause and reflection. Instead of flying to Los Angeles for yet another late-night talk show appearance, she found herself in a small Austin studio, collaborating with a handful of trusted co-writers who spoke her language of resilience and where home meant more than a hometown name check. In those closed-door sessions, the pressure to perform evaporated, and creativity breathed again in the spaces between strict set lists and tight schedules. Simultaneously, Miranda's team orchestrated a transparent communication strategy, balancing her privacy with fans' hunger for updates. Social media clips, without her speaking voice, showed her sipping herbal tea backstage, practicing gentle humming exercises, and flashing determined smiles. Within days, hashtags like #MirandaRest and #ComebackStronger began trending, underscoring the solidarity of a fanbase that understood this pause as part of her journey, not a detour. Ticket exchanges and refund procedures rolled out smoothly, accompanied by personalized messages from Miranda's crew, acknowledging the disappointment and expressing gratitude for each fan's patience. This level of candor and operational care reinforced the trust she had cultivated over 2 decades, showing that vulnerability, when met with respect, can strengthen an artist's bond with her audience. As the first week of silence concluded, a follow-up video post emerged, a close-up of Miranda's piano-laden home studio, her hands brushing across ivory keys, with on-screen text reading, "Almost there. Thank you for every message." Fans celebrated the milestone, interpreting it as good news, while experts cautioned that full recovery often extends beyond initial rest. Weary vocalists have returned to the stage too soon, only to face more severe damage. Miranda's doctors advised incremental rehearsals, starting with short, spoken-word practice sessions and gentle vocal slides, before any full song run-through. It was a stark contrast to the all-or-nothing bravado of her past, a reminder that self-care sometimes requires embracing discomfort and letting go of control. By the second week, behind-the-scenes snippets showed her engaging in yoga for breath control, sneaking in walks around desert landscapes with her coach, discussing alignment, posture, and diaphragmatic support, all essential components of a robust singing technique. These images served as another chapter in her evolving narrative, the superstar willing to step away from the spotlight to respect the demands of her craft. As she shared these glimpses, the conversation around her hiatus shifted from disappointment to admiration. Broadcasters praised her responsible approach. Fellow artists applauded the courage it took to stand down when every show equated to a paycheck, and every night on stage held stakes for future tours. This temporary retreat also sparked industry-wide reflection. Music publications ran pieces on the prevalence of vocal injuries in touring artists, examining how tour buses, recycled stadium air, and late-night performances exacerbate strain. Voice coaches and stage managers weighed in, discussing how modern concert technology, loud monitor mixes, in-ear systems, can unintentionally push singers to overcompensate. Miranda's willingness to share her journey lent urgency to these conversations, amplifying calls for sustainable touring practices and comprehensive wellness programs for performers. In this way, her personal setback transcended individual circumstances, igniting an important dialogue about preserving the longevity of voices that fuel live music's magic. When, at last, Miranda stepped back into a rehearsal studio for her first full run-through of a new song, it was a different kind of debut, one not marked by roaring audiences, but by the quiet success of a healed and resilient instrument. Every note carried renewed intention, every lyric seemed enriched by newly discovered fragility, and every chord progression felt like a testament to her patience. This ritual rehearsal laid the groundwork for her comeback plan, a next chapter defined not by relentless momentum, but by intentional artistry, carefully curated tours, and an album born from the unexpected gift of enforced rest. With her voice restored and her creative spirit reignited, Miranda Lambert stepped into the next phase of her career opportunity with renewed intention. In late spring of 2023, she announced plans to record a new album that would reflect everything she had learned during her enforced pause: the meaning of rest, the beauty of vulnerability, and the power of story-driven songwriting. Unlike the fast-paced production schedules of her earlier projects, this session embraced deliberation. Miranda selected an intimate studio in her native Texas Hill Country, inviting longtime collaborators alongside fresh songwriters who could bring untold perspectives. Together, they shaped a collection of songs that wove personal reflection with vivid imagery of home and heartache. The resulting work, titled Postcards from Texas, would become a testament to healing and resilience. She released Postcards from Texas on a warm August morning, timing the launch to coincide with the second anniversary of the night she first paused on stage in Vegas. The album's lead single, Dusty Trails and Distant Dreams, premiered on country radio with a stripped-back arrangement that let her healing voice carry every inflection and breath. The lyrics painted images of roadside motels and the ache of missing home, but also hinted at renewal. Lines like, "I found my heart beneath these worn-out boots," spoke directly to her journey through vocal rest and self-discovery. Critics noted the vulnerability woven through the tracks, praising her for turning enforced silence into a creative renaissance rather than a quiet retreat. Radio shows interviewed her via pre-recorded segments, giving fans glimpses of her reflections without demanding her to push her voice to live calls. Video interviews featured snippets of her humming the melody softly, her eyes bright with gratitude. Instead of lip-synced appearances on late-night television, she opted for a series of acoustic sessions filmed in intimate venues across Texas, old dance halls and community theaters with warm wooden floors and minimal amplification. These Texas postcard sessions were shared online, showcasing her restored vocal strength and charming, unpolished banter. Fans watched as she explained the origin of each song, sometimes revealing how a single word had been born from a message on her Vocal Rest Instagram stories. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard Top Country Albums chart, a testament not just to her star power, but to the authenticity resonating with listeners. It wasn't just another milestone. It was a narrative victory, proof that art need not sacrifice health for hustle. Sales figures were important, but more striking were the stories fans shared. Pregnant mothers who had wept during Letter to Youth, truck drivers who found solace in Whispers on the Wind, veterans who said the raw honesty reminded them of why they'd first fallen in love with her music. Testimonials streamed in on social feeds, reinforcing the album's emotional impact and positioning Miranda as an artist who had turned an obstacle into creative gold. As the album climbed the charts, she announced a limited Postcards from Texas tour designed around sustainable pacing. Instead of marathon runs through stadiums, she chose smaller theaters and amphitheaters with 2-night engagements in each city and days off designed for vocal rest and reflection. Tour producers redesigned the itinerary, flights replaced by ground travel where feasible, longer layovers between shows, and integrated wellness days featuring yoga, meditation, and voice therapy check-ins. Backstage, her team stocked herbal teas, hummus and vegetable plates, and air filters to ensure each venue's environment supported her vocal health. Crew members were briefed on the importance of quiet zones and respectful communication, turning the backstage into a sanctuary rather than a chaotic hub. Her postcards tour kicked off on a crisp September evening in Austin, Texas, at the historic Paramount Theater. The audience filled the red velvet seats, buzzing with anticipation. When Miranda walked on stage under soft amber lights, she greeted the crowd with a gentle wave, her voice strong and steady, even during high notes that once threatened to crack. She opened with Homeward Bound, a song inspired by her own longing for family dinners and childhood bedrooms, and the applause rose like a tidal wave. Between songs, she spoke candidly about the changes she'd made, about learning to listen to her body and to prioritize longevity over ephemeral triumphs. That honesty struck a chord. Fans cheered not just for the music, but for the artist who had redefined resilience. Throughout the tour, she wove brief moments of education into her shows, explaining vocal warm-up exercises and casual asides, gently reminding the audience that sometimes even stars need a rest, and encouraging anyone with a passion, musician or not, to respect their own limits. Each night closed with The House That Built Me, now laden with deeper weight, as she sang the verses with a vulnerability that felt like an embrace. Radio broadcasters replayed segments of those performances, highlighting how her voice had regained its former power, but with an added layer of texture and emotional depth. Social media lit up with clips of those nights, and the hashtag Miranda Returns trended regionally. Fans posted side-by-side comparisons of her voice before and after the hiatus, marveling at her recovery and growth. Country music blogs devoted posts to her tour's fresh approach, calling it the blueprint for sustainable superstardom. Industry observers noted that by openly prioritizing her health and restructuring her calendar, she had not only protected her instrument, but also set a new standard for artist well-being in an era of unrelenting content demands. Mid-tour, she surprised audiences by inviting guest performers, local violinists, harpists, even high school choirs, to share the stage for collaborative moments. These partnerships underscored her commitment to community and her recognition that music thrives on connection, not isolation. In Chicago, she welcomed a group of military veterans she'd met during her own recovery. They sang backup on a rendition of Gunpowder and Lead, transforming the song into a shared testament of strength. In Nashville, childhood friends from Lindale joined her for Mama's Broken Heart, turning it into an anthem of small-town pride. Each of these moments became mini-viral events, reinforcing that her comeback was as much about celebrating communal bonds as reclaiming vocal prowess. By the tour's end in late November at the Ryman Auditorium, a venue where she had once opened her career, she had not only sold out multiple nights, but also solidified her evolution. Where once audiences expected nonstop power, they now cherished the nuanced dynamics of her performance. The soft crescendos, the poignant pauses, the joyful laughter during banter. Critics wrote that she had reinvented her stagecraft, shifting from unguarded stamina to deliberate storytelling. All the while, her voice remained a testament to careful stewardship, a living example that sustainable practices and artistic excellence can coexist. As the final note of the postcards tour rang out, Miranda Lambert stood center stage, surveyed the sea of faces reflecting her own journey, and raised a simple toast. "Thank you for walking this path with me." That moment crystallized everything she had learned. Resilience is not just the refusal to break, but the wisdom to bend, to seek help, to pause, and then to rise with greater purpose. Long after the tours and record sales settle into history, Miranda Lambert's decision to step away on that night in Las Vegas stands as a turning point, one that redefined how we view strength and vulnerability in the modern music era. Instead of a tale of cancellation and disappointment, it became a story of intentional recovery, creative rebirth, and the kind of authenticity that disrupts tired industry narratives. Audiences saw an icon who could sing arenas silent with a glance, but who also recognized the value of silence itself when the body demands it. That moment of pause rippled across stages and studio walls, reminding artists and fans alike that resilience is not measured by how many nights you perform, but by how wisely you choose to care for yourself. Following the postcards tour, Miranda earned not only commercial success and glowing reviews, but also professional recognition that honored her journey. At the Country Music Association Awards the following fall, she accepted the CMA Award for Album of the Year, dedicating it to anyone learning that rest can be courage and vulnerability can be strength. Industry peers applauded her leadership in artist wellness, crediting her with starting vital conversations about sustainable careers. Music festivals began adjusting their schedules, adding wellness lounges for performers, and labels implemented mandatory recovery days between tour legs. Miranda's influence transcended the notes she sang. It shaped an emerging culture that blends ambition with well-being. Beyond professional circles, her story resonated in unexpected places. Vocal coaches reported a surge in inquiries about healthy techniques, and voice therapists saw more artists seeking preventative care rather than waiting for an injury. Her candid posts on social media, pictures of herbal steam sessions, videos of diaphragmatic breathing drills, became essential viewing for performers at every level. Fans launched support pages that highlighted community wellness, offering tips for managing burnout and advocating for mental and physical health resources. In public forums, people discussed how Miranda's transparency inspired them to set boundaries in their own lives, whether in demanding jobs or personal relationships. Meanwhile, Miranda continued building connections through new initiatives that blended her passion for music with her commitment to giving back. She founded the Postcards Foundation, a nonprofit offering scholarships to students studying vocal performance, music therapy, and sound engineering. The foundation partnered with rehab centers to provide therapeutic music sessions for individuals recovering from trauma. She donated a portion of tour proceeds to mental health charities and frequently hosted pop-up songwriting workshops for veterans and survivors of domestic violence, groups close to her heart since childhood. Each of these efforts demonstrated that her pause on stage was not only about preserving her voice, but about amplifying others' voices and stories. As the years passed, Miranda Lambert released subsequent projects that continued in the same spirit of intentional artistry. Her 2026 album blended autobiographical narratives with collaborations across genres, featuring duets with blues guitarists, folk ensembles, and hip-hop storytellers. Critics hailed it as daring and genuine, noting how her voice had gained a richer patina from life's lessons. She returned to the Velvet Rodeo concept in Las Vegas, but redesigned it as a limited-run pop-up residency, performing only 8 shows to sold-out crowds and weaving in multimedia storytelling elements about her journey. Each performance became part concert, part theatrical memoir, with visuals chronicling her trajectory from Lindale's dance halls to international arenas. In scholarly papers and business seminars, Miranda's story is cited as a case study in sustainable brand building and artist management. Streaming services created curated playlists titled Harmony and Healing, featuring her songs alongside music chosen for its therapeutic qualities. Music schools introduced modules on vocal health inspired by her regimen. And in online discussion boards, fans still recall the hush that fell over Vegas that fateful night and marvel at how one moment of vulnerability sparked an era of mindful artistry. Miranda Lambert's legacy goes far beyond her catalog of hits. It resides in the evolving narrative of what it means to be a star who dares to pause, to heal, and then to sing again with renewed conviction. Looking ahead, Miranda shows no signs of slowing down. Her upcoming plans include co-producing a documentary that chronicles her journey through adversity and triumph, offering fans an intimate look at the moments unseen between stages and studio walls. She's also exploring collaborative projects that cross cultural and generational divides, working with emerging artists in pop, rock, Americana, and even classical music. Meanwhile, she's committed to advocating for mental wellness within the entertainment industry, partnering with mental health professionals to create support networks for touring musicians and crew members. Each new endeavor reinforces her belief that true artistry encompasses both self-expression and self-care unapologetically.